I made a quiz a while ago, and today I want to improve the experience of failing it. So we're going to explore 4 scenarios together. How to limit the number of times the user can retry a quiz, how to instantly end the quiz when an incorrect answer is given, how to instantly end the quiz when the score falls below the passing score, and how to set up a gamified lives system where the user loses lives when they give out an incorrect answer. So, as I said, to explore these scenarios, I'm going to be using the quiz I made in this video. It's a quiz with one intro slide, 10 random questions, and one results slide at the end. So the first thing we can try is limit the number of times the user can retry the quiz if they fail. If they fail once, we have a retry button on the results slide. If they fail the quiz again, there is no retry button, and the only option is to close the training. Right now, this quiz has a passing score of 80%. That means that out of the 10 questions, the user must answer at least 8 questions correctly to pass. If they don't, then at the end of a quiz, their score will be below the passing score, which means that they have failed the quiz. Now, when I built this quiz, I included this button on the results slide, which is a button that is set to restart the course when pressed. This means that it resets the results and all the other variables in my project and takes the user to the very first slide of the training. It's like opening the course all over again. And sure, this works for this project because the quiz is the entire project, but usually a quiz like this sits at the end of the project as a final knowledge check. If that's the case, having the restart course button will jump to the very first slide of the project, and the user will have to go through the entire course again in order to reach the quiz. So to only reset the quiz and take the user back to the start of the quiz, I'm going to have to change the triggers on the button to this. First off, I'm going to reset the results, which will allow the user to answer the questions again. And then clicking this button will jump to the start of the quiz. I can either jump to the scene that has the start button for the quiz or to the first question bank in the quiz. And then I'm going to move this button to the failure layer, and it's going to move the triggers as well, since I only want this button to show up when the user fails the quiz. It's also a good idea to go to your questions, click on the slide properties, and ensure this is set to either automatically decide or reset to initial state. If this is set to resume safe state, it will show you the correct or incorrect layers depending on which one was the last one you viewed. So the user won't be able to select an answer since they can't click on the base layer. Now back to the results slide. If I want the user to be able to take this quiz until they pass, I can leave these triggers as they are. This will allow the user to retry for an infinite amount of lives until they get a score of 80% or more. But what if I want to only offer one second chance? So if they fail, allow them to retry. But if they fail again, the retry button is hidden. Well, first off, I want to create a number variable, and I'm going to call it available attempts. I'm going to use this to track how many chances we give our users to retry the quiz. I'm going to set it to 1 for now, since we only offer one chance. Now select the retry button and add a trigger. When clicked, subtract 1 from the available attempts variable. Move this trigger so that it runs before we jump to the start of the quiz. Now what we need to do is add a trigger to change the state of the retry button to hidden once there are no more available attempts. The next thing we can try is to have the quiz end as soon as an incorrect answer is given. This is a scenario where failure is unacceptable. If the user fails, they go right to the end screen. If we want to do this, we need to go to the feedback master and find the layout that controls our incorrect feedback. Then add a trigger. Jump to the results slide as soon as the timeline starts on this layer. Since I did this change on my feedback master, it will now apply to all of my question slides that use this master. This is how it works. I don't think I ever saw one of these quizzes, but hey, at least you know you can do this, you have this option. So you have to answer 8 questions correctly. But the following thing can happen. You can answer question 1 incorrectly, and then answer question 2 incorrectly. And if you give an incorrect answer to question 3 as well, there's no use in continuing the quiz, since even if you answer all questions correctly, you will still get a score of only 70%, and 80 is required to pass. So we should show the results screen as soon as it becomes clear that the passing score can't be achieved. So how can we do that? We can track the number of incorrect answers and jump to the results slide when it becomes clear that even if the user answers all of the questions correctly, they won't be able to get the passing score. I'm gonna go to the feedback master and find the layer that controls our incorrect feedback, and then I'm gonna need a number variable to count the number of times the incorrect layer was shown. Let's call it available lives, and I will give it a default value of 3, since it basically takes 3 wrong answers to not be able to achieve a score above 80%. Now it's time to edit this trigger. It should still jump to the results slide when the timeline starts on this layer, but only when there are no more available lives left. Then we need to add a trigger so that each time the incorrect layer pops up, we subtract 1 from our available lives variable. This trigger needs to run first, then we can check if we need to go to the results slide. Awesome. Now we can also display the number of incorrect answers on the slide by going to the master slide, which controls all of my question layouts, and then adding a text box with a variable reference inside. And the variable we're gonna reference is available lives. This way, the user can see if they are on the verge of failing the quiz. And the last thing we need to do is to reset the available lives variable to 3 once the user clicks the retry button here on the results slide. Make sure this trigger comes before the one meant to jump to the start of the quiz. If I preview this now, I'm only allowed to give 3 incorrect answers before being taken to the results slide. That's great. That's just what we wanted, but we can do more with this. Now, you may be wondering why I call this variable available lives. Well, it's because at this point, this resembles those systems used in games to count the number of times the player died. So, in our case, we already gamified the quiz because we display how many lives the user has. We're just gonna add an extra touch, and we're gonna go from this to this. So it's mostly a visual change. I added these 3 heart emojis to the master slide, which controls all of my questions, and all the hearts are visible at the start of the timeline. Now what I need to do is add some triggers to hide them depending on how many available lives the user has. First off, I'm gonna add these triggers that will run when the timeline starts. This trigger, for example, will check if the available lives variable is smaller than 3, then it will hide the third heart if it is. This will ensure that the number of hearts that are hidden stays constant when we move from one question to another. And then I'm gonna add another series of triggers that will run when the available lives variable changes. This will allow us to see the heart actually disappear when we get to the incorrect layer. And that's basically all I need to do. We now have this nice way of displaying how many times the user can answer incorrectly. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.